Welcome back once again. Welcome back, everybody, to our special edition, our live town hall Street Soldiers radio show to address violence in the community and, let's get this straight, to make it better, to improve relationships between local police and particularly our young people. I think the first hour and a half has just been I think it's been great. I mean, I've learned a lot and I know this stuff, right? This last segment, we're going to give our young people a chance to ask questions of any of the panelists. And for those of you who are just tuning in, although you should have been tuned in all along, we've had we're focusing on the cities of Oakland and San Francisco. We've heard from the police chief of San Francisco and a captain and lieutenant in Oakland. We've had a segment, on Know Your Rights from two public defenders in both Alameda County and in San Francisco. And our last segment was if you have a complaint against a police officer, what should you do? And we heard from two gentlemen who work in those respective areas. And now we would turn it over to our young people who have been listening I think, wonderfully. This is a great class. It's like, this is one, we got to give y'all a hand. Y'all were fabulous. But maybe we should give them a hand early because they're ready to do their thing. So, ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer. Ask hard questions. Go, honey.
Okay, so my question is for the Oakland Police Department and the San Francisco Police Department. And it's about racial profiling and police brutality. And I understand that these issues aren't necessarily completely at the fault of just law enforcement in general, but the individual people who are in the positions of, police department, of law enforcement. And if you have a police officer who is racist or prejudiced, that they're not going to necessarily put their racial bias to the side in order to complete their job, but they're most likely going to use that in order to act on their job. So my question was, what are the Oakland Police Department and the San Francisco Police Department doing to ensure that the officers that they are hiring are not prejudiced or racist?
Yeah.
Go for it, y'all.
So, in terms of the hiring, first of all, the background investigation and the psychological part of that investigation is very, very in depth. And I've seen in my own career where we have had people that have been disqualified in terms of racist activities associating with groups known to be hate-mongering groups. Also with the psychological portion of the test, and I think most police departments is pretty extensive. I know with major cities it is. So a lot of that, if that behavior exists, it gets caught at that level. Now, if somebody does get through that process and get on the department, first of all, to racial profiling, of course it's illegal. And we know that there's, even though it's illegal, there are allegations across this country that this type of behavior occurs. And we do everything possible to try to not have that happen in our organizations. If in fact it does happen and it's been proven that's in terms of my view, that's the case that I would refer to the police commission for termination. Now, San Francisco has had its share. I'll wrap this up really quickly. Its share of incidents recently, texting scandals and whatnot, where there were some very, very awful things that were said by police officers. And I think there was 18 police officers in all that were caught up in one thing or another. 6 of them have been separated from service or are separated from service, and the rest of them remain to be adjudicated. So we take it very seriously. It's an ongoing process. We train our officers on implicit bias in order to get to biases that we don't even know we have, and that's an evolving. I know Oakland does it too, but all these things are done to try to root that behavior out, so we can have a police department that is just, that's constitutional, and that enforces the law without prejudice or bias.
Oakland?
Well, I can add with regards to the Oakland Police Department. Again, so one of the things that we do, and thank you very much for that question, one of the things that we've done over the past 2 years, we actually invited Stanford to come, a group of professors led by Dr. Eberhardt, to do a study at the Oakland Police Department. And what she did and in her field of expertise is on implicit bias. And basically, everyone in this room, police officers and citizens alike, have biases just by the nature of their upbringing, by their cultures, and by their, their general upbringing. And so, even though we go through, like Chief Scott said, this extensive hiring process, people will come on the department with their biases. And what we try to do is make sure that, first of all, we recognize that we do have biases and make sure that we're not imposing those biases on the community that we have to police. And so what Dr. Eberhardt did was put together this extensive report, and that was recently published, and it's on our website. And it outlined research into our body-worn camera. The professors studied that. They also studied our reports to check what type of language is being used when we engage the community, especially the community of colored, the African-American community and the Hispanic community. And part of her training is to let it be known that we do have biases and we have to control those biases and make sure that we're fair and impartial whenever we're dealing with any member of the community. So those are some of the things that we've done in addition to a very strict hiring process. Bring outsiders from the individuals in the field, in the expertise of implicit bias into our department and be very open about how we police.
And even with that, you have to recognize when you come onto the department, you come on with the greatest of intents. But you have to also recognize that sometimes there's a level of cynicism that starts to overcome some officers. And in our procedural justice training, we teach to recognize if cynicism is setting in your partners, right? To be able to recognize and talk to your fellow officers about that. So there's not just only the hiring process, but throughout the department, risk management tools that we have to recognize officers, early intervention programs, right, to make sure that they're on the proper path. If they start to stray off, we have training to put them back on the right path.
We got a lot of questions. Let me just ask real quick to that one. I know that there is some serious bias training going on in San Francisco. I've seen it. You would be proud of it. And so, trying to figure out, should this person be here is a difficult thing, but there is some serious training going on. Secondly, let me tell you the quickest way to get fire the person when you find out. And we have fired folks, Chief knows that, in the city. And but honey, great question. There's a lot of work to be done by that because too many have slipped in.
My question is, is the money that's being donated for improving the community and policing relations going straight to the program, such as the CSI program that helps provide for the youth in our community, or is the money going to the police department or the city? How is the money being distributed and regulated?
For us, the money that is donated to go to programs and programming goes to programming. And we have a number in terms of CSI, and I don't know what all the sources of funding are for CSI, but I know we do have a number of programs where very generous people from this city and the Bay Area donate millions of dollars to programs, and that money does go directly to those programs.
My question is, how do you want to build a better relationship with the young people in our community?
Go for it. You asking the police or you asking everybody?
Everybody.
Well,
Let's start with the police because they the one.
So part of our answer is things like, we have an officer sitting in this room right over there, Officer Johnson, that is phenomenal in terms of how the San Francisco Police Department wants to engage with young people. Officer Johnson took, how many kids? 14 kids to Ghana, to Africa, West Africa, a couple of months ago. And for a lot of the kids, he and other officers, they've been doing this for now, I think 4 years. And that's just one of many things that we do. The Garden Project, the Summer Project, CSI that was just mentioned by the previous young lady. We have a number of things. What we want to do is engage with people like yourself outside of a confrontational context. We want you to see the officers as people. And a lot of that is just having regular interactions and regular conversations. We got officers that coach. We have officers that do all kind of things that are outside of traditional police work to engage. So you get to know officers, and officers get to know you as people. And that's first and foremost. And that is how, for many of us, we trust the police because we get to know them as people, not because they come to your house to make an arrest or to take somebody away in handcuffs. It's just to know who you are. And we have a number of programs to do that. And that's a great question.
Anybody else want to add?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and over in Oakland, and I'm glad you asked that question. Over in Oakland, we strive weekly to engage, have our commanders, have the officers engage in some type of a community event throughout the community. And it can be something as small as what Captain Militant is heading up, Coffee with a Cop. We go to various coffee shops and invite the public in just to have normal discussions. In our particular area, we've had ice cream socials, we've had barbecues, play basketball with the youth. Our Youth and Family Services Division, they go into the schools daily. They take field trips to like UC Berkeley and just engaging in just normal conversation. We have open houses. Matter of fact, we just had an open house with a high school this past week, so they can come into the department, and it's just, it's not engaging with officers on a call for service. It's engaging just talking, if they have questions or whatever the case may be. So our department really encourages us to reach out to young people, and so we can have this relationship and open dialogue.
If I can add one thing in closing, not to stretch this on, but in addition to what Lieutenant Hookfin said, we have an Explorer program as well as a cadet program. The Explorers are volunteers in middle school, just about middle school age, maybe a little bit older than you, who come to the department, tour around the different divisions of the department, not only the law enforcement branch, but we have a crime lab and property and other functions in the department that we want to introduce these young people to so that they see the opportunities that the police department can offer them, and then also see the police as just normal people. And then we have the cadet program, and coincidentally, to kind of touching on the point of the young lady just before you with regards to funding, we had an independent donor donate almost $500,000 to increase our cadet program. The cadets are 17 to 21-year-old students who are paid while working at the police department, learning about police procedures and police policies with the hopes that they get into the academy. Now, we work very diligently, our recruiting department, to find local youth to join the program. And it's an ongoing struggle, but there's a lot of funding out there that we have currently to build that program up and make it larger than it is currently, just so that we can build those relationships, those long-lasting relationships.
And I'll just add the Alameda County Public Defender's Office, through our LYRIC program, which we are continuing to try to expand, really believes that if youth know their rights, that's very empowering and that's very important for youth. And so we're trying to reach out to as many youth as possible to educate them as to their rights and empower them in that way.
Michael.
All right, I'm just going to give it to you guys. I got 3 questions, so you got to bear with me. All right, the first one, is there a requirement of how many hours an officer must have on foot in the community? That's for both San Francisco and Oakland.
It's not a hard requirement. We definitely put officers out on foot on a regular basis now. In some areas, the foot patrols are permanent fixtures. I mean, they do them all the time. In other areas, it depends on what's going on. And some captains will have officers, like in the Terraville, for instance. We had some things happening over in the OMI area, and this captain has each officer or team of officers on every shift do at least an hour in a particular location where we have some issues. That's just that particular station. Every one of our 10 district stations do a little bit differently, but we do have officers on foot all over the city. And we don't have a set number of hours that we have them work. Some stations do, others don't, but it kind of depends on the situation and what's going on. I will say, though, if it's within our power and everything, if everything lines up, we will increase our foot patrols because we know that's an effective way to engage with the community and police. It just takes a lot more officers to do it.
We don't have a set number of hours, but I do have foot patrol officers that are constantly on foot, on bicycles, are interacting with the residents and the community as far as businesses. And actually, matter of fact, we're getting several more walk-in officers in East Oakland. So that's going to put more foot patrol officers out there that's interacting with the community and interacting with businesses as well.
Okay, my second question, was, how do you exemplify a welcoming presence when an officer is being rude? Like, how do me as like a person that's, say, like being pulled over, exemplify a calm presence when someone is being, say, hurtful and, like, not gonna say disrespectful because I just learned about this lesson, but being rude to you, basically. How do I keep composure when I feel like I'm being targeted?
Can I jump in on that? Because that's one of the things I was
ahead.
talking about. It's hard. There is no easy way to do that. But in terms of keeping yourself safe, you can say to the officer, your question doesn't seem appropriate to me. I want to be respectful, but your question doesn't seem appropriate. Keep your voice low and keep holding on to your hand so you don't do something you don't intend to.
Yeah, I would, oh, go ahead,
I'd
sir.
like to add, in all the information you've learned this evening, understand that you have recourse. You're not going to fight that battle right then and there. So, oftentimes, every one of us up here has been in a situation, whether it's with an officer,
Yep.
whether it's over someone over the phone we're doing business with, a teacher, whatever, where we felt disrespected, we felt that they were rude to us, discourteous to us, and it was unwarranted. But you have to learn how and when to address those situations. And on the street at that moment, in that instant, with that particular officer that you feel is being rude to you, is not the place to do that. You know, that's why we have DPA, that's why we have the CPRB, that's why we have internal affairs institutions.
That's why you
like
have
that.
Dr. Marshall.
That's why you have Dr. Marshall, for sure. You have resources to take that complaint to take that situation to. And we didn't get into it much about how to do that, the process, but if you believe that, you know, it can be resolved by the resources that you have available, then take it to those entities. We'll sit down, each of us will sit down with you and walk you through that process. You don't have to address it then. Like Ms. Katz said before, you want to get out of that situation as safe as possible. So if you get the ticket, if you get arrested, we'll deal with it on the other side, okay?
I would add too, it's okay to ask for a supervisor. You know, it's okay, and good advice, but it's okay to ask for a supervisor. And that supervisor, they get paid more money for, one of the reasons is they have kind of a higher level of responsibility. They should bring some calm to a situation. And also, if there was anything that was done that's not according to standard or regulation, they have an obligation to take some action on that. So it's good to call a supervisor.
Hi, my name is Ariane, and my question is, how are you guys implementing programs for the youth that are on the opposite side of the law? Because I feel like some of the programs, or most of the majority of the programs, to be exact, are geared to people who are already on that path to success, already want to be DAs, PDs, officers. How are you guys flipping that? And those people on the opposite side of the law, how are you guys bringing them in to be positive and be successful?
Well,
And that's for everyone.
one of the answers is, you know, man standing right behind you. You know, we work with a lot of community-based organizations in San Francisco, a lot of them, and not to plug one over the other, they all do good work. But one of the really good things about that is they allow us to work with some of the individuals that you're talking about that have already maybe started to go on the wrong path. And the thing that's great about some of the organizations that we work with is those folks in those organizations can communicate and relate to folks that sometimes the police department can't. And we're great at, you know, making referrals to these organizations and working with and through these organizations to try to change people's lives for the better. But it's really important for us to reach out to the resources in the community, like, you know, United Players and some of the others out there to do that work, because it is a huge need for that. And that's an excellent question, because traditionally you have a generation of people out there, or a group of people that sometimes get left behind. And there's a lot of help out there, and we have to work with that help to make it happen.
And on the other side of the bay, through our ceasefire initiative, we have very similar, I see you recognize that, we have a very similar initiative to United Players where we have social services that are available for those individuals who are high risk and who have may have taken that wrong path. And we'll call them in and have a meeting, a sit-down session, much like this, where there's a panel, and we offer services, job services, social services, where in the norm, because of maybe their background or the path that they've taken, they wouldn't get the resources. So we do have a panel and a forum for that through our ceasefire initiative.
And with that, in our youth and family services, we have mentors that go into the middle schools, and they're looking for the young people that are most at risk of going down that wrong path, and they mentor them through middle school and through high school. So we do have a lot of programs out there.
Thank you.
And that's what we do as public defenders. We work with youth and adults who have been arrested, who have been charged with crimes. Not everybody who's arrested is guilty. And if you get arrested, if you get charged, you have a right to an attorney and an entire office of professionals who will work with you to try to ensure that you're not convicted of a crime if there's not evidence, and that somebody's there to stand up for you regardless.
I'm Damian Posey, one of the case managers for United Players. We're all up here, man, a lot of the youth, man, and we appreciate you, Dr. Marshall, for putting this together. I want to commend the youth for coming up here, sitting up here, paying attention. You guys provided a lot of good information today. I want to thank you all for coming up here. We do a lot of work with you guys. He didn't want to plug us, but I'll plug us. United Players, it takes the hood to say the hood. Rudy Corpus, we've been doing this work for a long time. We're going to continue to do it on the street. The question that I had was about, you said you had the training 60 hours plus 20 hours. I'd like to know, when did that start, and what are the penalties for not following the set guidelines that you guys have? Because I know you guys have the guidelines and stuff, because we're here talking about the community relationship with the police and the youth and, you know, the community, period. I want to know, when did that start, and what are the penalties, the solid penalties for guys who don't follow through, cutting on the body cameras, or who you guys really find that are not following through, because there needs to be some penalties for that type of stuff.
Yeah, the CIT program for us started several years ago now. In terms of the training, it's evolved. The 20-hour portion just started within the last year.
Okay.
The 40-hour portion, I believe, started 2015, I believe, late 2015. In terms of penalties, these tactics are guidelines, like any other tactic. They're guidelines, and when guidelines aren't followed, first thing you have to determine is there a reason why? Is it reasonable? If things are done outside of our protocols and our procedures, then you address it either one or two ways, either with training, if it's a training issue, or if it's so egregious that it's so outside of bounds, then it's disciplinary. And so those are the two methods that we use. A lot of times things can be addressed with training. If it's so egregious in terms of tactics and field tactics that it's outside of bounds, then it's going to be a disciplinary situation.
Like murder?
This is, I don't know how encouraging this is, but I know in the city, in San Francisco, the officers have adopted this thing called "Not on My Watch." And that basically means if they catch an officer who's doing something they shouldn't be doing, the officers are now reporting the officers, which is something I never thought would happen, believe me.
They part of the hood, you know. It takes the hood to save the hood.
So all of that is coming full circle. I think I got 10 seconds before I got to go into the rejoinder and do the summation, right? I better do that right now, because I think we're about at the end of the show. Let me just say, and I'm gonna give everybody a chance to say something. Thank you to everyone, all of our panelists, San Francisco Police Chief William Scott, Captain Sekou Millington, and Lieutenant Bobby Hookfin of the Oakland Police Department, Lisa Katz of the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, Francisco Serrano, Deputy Public Defender from Alameda County Public Defender's Office, Manny Forts, Acting Director, I get all these names, Anthony Fennell, Executive Director of the Citizens Review Board, and last but certainly not least, the young people from Alive and Free United Players, the Mo Magic, and more importantly, thank KMEL, 106 for putting this on. Thank everybody for coming. We'll see you next week right here on the radio on the Live and Free Street Soldiers. Thank you very much.